Got my H100 stacked, training data packs. While you're playing safe and slow, I'm putting on a show.
So, Chris, this week we got to see what the biggest supercluster computer in the world can deliver with the announcement of Grok 3.
And it was pretty and it was pretty damn good. The results are excellent.
Yeah, the results are pretty interesting. There was a live stream over on X. I think it was maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, our time, announcing Grok 3 with Elon Musk himself, and he claimed that he literally did nothing there, which
He simultaneously claims to have done nothing, but also says that this is like the first step in controlling the universe or something. he's like the master of exaggeration. So he's sitting there with these sort of really timid, shy dudes being like, yeah, we trained our whole lives for this and we've worked with the biggest cluster in the world to make this amazing thing. He's like, yeah, and it can take over the universe. Like, it's very close, probably next week. Like,
what
it'll
I
be ready.
find funny now about these billionaires is they like march out and it almost appears under duress, their gaggle of nerds, call it, like AI people, their gaggle of AI people out.
Yeah.
And they sort of have to sit there and present like puppets for their puppet master who's trying to like outdo the other billionaire.
It's funny because I was discussing with both you and my wife through the week, like, why would they do this? Like, spend all this money and then be like, yeah, by the way, it's free. It's amazing and it's free. And I remembered a line in the TV show Silicon Valley where it's like, they're billionaires, Richard, that spend hundreds of millions just to mildly annoy the other one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's really just like, oh, I've got a rocket company. Now I've got an AI company. Mine's better than yours. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess for Elon Musk, it's definitely a bit of a passion project around the fact that, you know, he helped co-found or create OpenAI, and then they've sort of taken that away from him and away from his brand. So then what does he do? He goes out and releases or creates XAI, raises an absolute truck ton of money, and then somehow miraculously builds, from what we know, the biggest cluster of, is it H100s they use?
That's what they said.
Yeah. H100s in existence, and then they rapidly scale up and train a model. And that's why I have this graph up on the screen. It shows GPT-2 all the way back in 2019, scaling up to GPT-4.0 roughly. It's interesting they show 4.0 on this chart, and I think later they probably put Grok 3 on there, but they show scaling up, and they were comparing Grok 2 to GPT-4.0. I'm not sure that's a fair comparison, to be honest, but then we see this scale all the way up, or we're told on the presentation to Grok 3. But you can see, so 2023, they launched XAI and Grok 0 model, and then they've been able to scale up now. And according to these benchmarks they're showing us, now basically on par with O1.
Yeah, and I said to you before the pod, if I just like gave you $1 billion now, right? Just $1 billion cash, nothing else, no expertise, nothing. How quickly do you think you could build a frontier model?
Well, it depends. I don't just need the cash. I need the gaggle of nerds, like the gaggle of researchers. And I need to hold them under duress like Musk has.
But clearly these guys, they're open to, you know, a payment will work. And I reckon you could do it. I reckon you could probably within a year, with no former expertise in the matter, with $1 billion, you could build a frontier model. It just seems that way to me, that the barrier for entry is simply money. And
like if you think it through, right? So there's probably, I'm going to guess like 100, maybe 200 people in the US predominantly who have these skills, right? And so presumably if you've got some sort of mission that's saving the world better than the other AI lab, like we're saving the world better than they're saving the world.
Where someone else makes the world a better place.
Yeah, so it's basically like that. So if you can present this like epic vision to them of like how you're saving the world better, and then you can offer them a lot of money because now you have like your billions. So you can be like, I'll give you like 100 million if you join or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you can like go to the NVIDIA gods and be like, can we please have the H100? So you've got to also like go and kiss the throne of of the CEO of Nvidia. So you've got to go do that. So there's a few barriers to entry, but once you've overcome those barriers, no, I think there's literally no moat apart from being able to like build this. Well, that's kind of hard in and of itself, building the server cluster, getting your gaggle of whatever we're calling them, um, and and then having your mission, and then yeah, getting to work. But it does seem, given they've been able to catch up so quickly, there is zero moat with these labs, really, apart from who can access the compute. And maybe I think there's the pieces obviously on top of like the tuning and the tool sets now around the models, like with the deep search and stuff like that.
Yes, and I think this comes to the point that you made about it is that their interface and the way you interact with Grok is excellent. Like it is really, really nice. Like the thinking UI is really nice. The interface itself, it loads really fast. It responds really fast. It really is the full package when it comes to releasing an AI model. It isn't like just a declaration, we have the best model, you can't access it. They let you access day one and it works excellently.
Yeah, so they've released it through the X.com platform. Grok's in there, but it's also on Grok.com. And right
And
now,
that's grok
yeah,
dot
not
com
to
to
be
be clear.
confused with the Q. And yeah, and so it's super fast. It's free, so you can use it for free. There are rate limits, of course, and I think if you pay their subscription, which is coming soon, $30 a month, it'll be faster, and you get access to voice and a couple of other features. It sounds very familiar, like it's a very similar playbook to OpenAI. And so if you look on the benchmarks, just according to these guys, they haven't released an API yet, so it's really hard to validate this or do like vibe checks in sort of day-to-day workflows. But at the competition math benchmark, it outperforms, all of the models like O3 Mini, even their Grok 3 Mini models up there. Competition math on the 24 benchmark, it performed even better than all the models. So it's the typical announcement where they're showing it kind of beats on everything. Notably absent there, I thought, I guess because it's not a thinking model, was Claude. It's not on any of these benchmarks. It'd be interesting to put it up there to see how it performs comparably. But I think the takeaway from this is on the benchmarks, it's really winning. And I'm not sure though how much these benchmarks mean. Like my own experience of it, and I want to reserve judgment because we were talking about before we recorded. Like I was super negative on Claude Sonnet when it first came out, and I was like on the GPT-4.0 bandwagon. Like I was like, this is the model for me. And then it was actually you that kept saying, "Oh, this Sonnet's pretty good." And then I would switch to it, and I found myself switching away from it less and less. And then it became the daily driver, and then I was going back to OpenAI's models when it sort of hit a wall. So I'm curious to see, once I have the availability of this model, where I can switch so I know if it's better or not. Do I daily drive a Grok 3 once the API comes out? Or do I find myself still going back to like O3 Mini or Sonnet or whatever it is? So I think that's going to be the real test before I have some sort of judgment call outside of the benchmarks. My initial impressions just using it through the X platform initially is that because it's lacking things like file upload and image recognition right now, I mean, those things are coming, to be clear. I found, like, as a daily driver right now, I found it really hard to work with. I also found that I told you this too, I was coding side by side with on Sim Theory, and then I was putting every query into Grok and having similar conversations to try and get to the outcome. And I don't know if it's like a tuning thing right now. I was working, to be clear, mostly on sort of front end stuff. I just found it couldn't find the bugs very well, and it didn't work terribly well. But you had a completely different experience. You really liked it for code. So my experience was completely uh, different.
Yeah, I think early on, I'm finding it really hard to fault in terms of things like that. The coding seems competent, like it's able to answer in a way that I like. It's able to keep up with a fairly demanding workflow where I'm pasting huge amounts of code and asking for small changes and things like that. And then the thing that has really just blown me away with it is the research capability. I Prior to this, I found out about a thing called Pike Rag, something that Microsoft released throughout the week that I really want to try out as a new RAG method for sim theory. And I just didn't have time to get a full overview. So I put it into Grok 3 with the research thinking mode on. I gave it the URL of the official Pike Rag thing and said, research this. And then using a combination of web searches, that URL, and its own thinking process, it gave me what I described to you. Like, I could take those sheets of paper, spend a few minutes with them, and get up in front of an audience and do a confident presentation about Pike Rag just based on the talking points and summary it gave me. Like, it was excellent, like absolutely coherently laid out. Like, here's the rationale for it. Here is how it was made. Here's why it was made. Here's use cases you would use it for, and here are the key features. Like, everything you would want. And that was with a one liner, like, tell me about this. I mean, I was really, really blown away by that. I have not had that experience with OpenAI research models, to be clear. Well, research, whatever you call it. Like, it's just, they output too much stuff and it's just not coherent. Whereas this seemed to be really well thought through.
Yeah, it seems like different use cases or like different people have different experiences. You see a lot of the sort of Twitterati saying, oh, the OpenAI research is way better. First of all, it's paywalled behind a $200 a month subscription, which the majority of people will simply just not pay. I think they're going to release it eventually soon.
Yeah, me included. So to be clear, I haven't done a fair side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, like this will be released soon, and I think this will now put pressure on OpenAI to release it, and it kind of, I think, disrupts their $200 a month subscription as well. And I think we should definitely talk about the impact to OpenAI's business this will have. But I asked the same question around the sim theory research, which I think I talked about last week or the week before on the show, and Grok nailed it. Like, it felt really grounded. It didn't hallucinate at all. Instruction followed better. Like, it actually followed the instructions of taking the hint that I gave it the link to the thing that I wanted investment advice on. And it came up with, I thought, a really good assessment of what I needed to do. And compared to the deep research and I apologize if I get these names wrong, because in some of them it's deep research, in Grok it's deep search. But anyway, so in OpenAI's deep research, like, it just came out with hallucinated garbage. Like, and I made that comment around, I don't want to read through all of this. But I found with Grok's deep search responses, it was very readable and structured well, and not too long, but concise and consolidated.
That's exactly what I'm describing.
Yeah.
And just skimming it, it was credible enough that I wanted to read more. Like, it actually piqued my curiosity, and I'm like, this looks good. This looks like someone has put this together deliberately as an information document on this product. Like, it's really excellent.
Yeah, I did some side-by-side comparisons with OpenAI's deep research and deep search. And I found, for the things I'm interested in, at least, or wanted information on, especially distilling documentation or coming up with an approach from documentation, it's not even a fair comparison. Like, the deep search Grok feature was just far better. It's like the tune or the end product that is delivered is far superior.
That's right. I would argue you take their exact same technology and you use a different model, and you'd probably get similarly good results. I think they've just really built great tooling around the model, and it's putting the model's best foot forward, which we've spoken about many times being very important.
I just like, just taking a step back from all of this, the deep research, the deep search and stuff. Do you kind of feel a little bit cheated over this stuff? Like, my impression of the future, right, was I can walk up to my glass wall, as OpenAI describes it, and be like, tell me all about this, model or whatever. And previously, in ChatGPT or whatever it was, it would very quickly search the web and then spit back an answer almost instantaneously, right? Or it would just tell you based on its super knowledge, right?
Yeah.
My impression of the future was that, like, it would just respond. I didn't have to sit and wait like a pathetic loser and be like, come on. And I found myself for a lot of these deep research or deep search queries, like the process of me stepping through the research or like saying, hey, can you read this or do this or tell me about this? No, I want to go deeper into this. Almost like call it a threaded conversation where I'm piecing it together in my mind and getting instantaneous results. Like, what do you think of this? Bang. I find that experience still, if I'm trying to learn something, superior, and then asking it to summarize at the end. So that's like one thing I'm a bit.
But isn't this why, like, for example, throughout the week when I'm doing coding, like as we've mentioned before, I'm very often working at low energy times when I'm working on sim theory, for example. Like I'm really tired. And so you need something to keep you going. And I find that the immediacy of a model replying straight away to your answers keeps me on task. Whereas if I use a thinking model or something that just takes longer in general, and I'm talking the difference of like 5 to 10 seconds extra, I will get distracted. I'll look up a YouTube video, I'll check Discord, I'll do something else. And so that interactivity works well. However, as we discussed last week, I think that this really does come back to tooling. Like the deep research, I'm willing to wait for that to get those quality of answers. But the problem is I don't want to wait in an interactive way. I don't want to be blocked on continuing while I wait for that to perform. So to me, it really comes back to your concept, which is this idea of background tasks where I go, okay, here are the things I need to do to get my job done. I'm going to set it off doing 3 or 4 of them. And like you say, bring them back in a sort of threaded style or some way of weaving things back together to getting on with the task. So I don't actually think the time needed to do the proper research is a problem per se. I think it's more about the way you actually bring it all back together when it's done and not having to sit there and actually wait for it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. To me, like the ideal structure would be like, here's the 10 things I've got to get done. And then it's making the decision. Like, I'm going to go do deep search. I'm going to use a computer. I'm going to create a Word document on the local disk and edit it, like whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think this really comes back to I've just the last few weeks I really thought about the point that you made around code mode. Like when we released Create with Code for Sim Theory, you made the point no one cares about the actual code. Like it's cool to see it streaming in and stuff, but people who are using that just care about what it can do for them. And it's very similar with the research. Like if I'm getting it to do research for me, I don't really want to read all that stuff. I want an action or I want an answer or I want something, but you also want an answer that you're convinced of. So like you mentioned it to me before the show that you actually like the process of working with the model to get to a point when you're doing research. So like a sort of dialogue back and forth, and that helps you personally to get to know the topic. So you know that at the end, you've got what you believe is an informed answer, right? You're not just going to shove like, 100-page document into a model, a thinking model, and just get a yes or no and be like, okay, that's probably correct. So you need to go through the process to get to that yes or no to believe in the answer. But I think ultimately people don't care about the intermediary steps if they were to trust the final answer. And so I think that if we can get to the point where we build trust in models and know that these thinking steps are reliable and they're, say, grounded in a particular set of knowledge that we know is required for this task, and then they lead to outcomes where actions can be taken, which I think is really the ultimate answer when we think about computer use and stuff, and we trust them, then people aren't going to care about the sort of middle steps. And so I think that when we talk about how we interact with the AI, we're going to gradually get to those points where we trust it more and more to go further down the line in the process. So it isn't just research, it's research with actions.
And do you think, I think that's why at the moment the UI around showing like a stream of thought and then what it's doing in terms of, searching sources and putting the sources in as it goes, that's like a comfort thing, like in between step for the user to make them feel comfortable.
It's like if you go to a restaurant and you order a meal and then they bring it out 4 seconds later, like it's some complicated meal and they're like, here you go. Like, are you going to trust that meal? You're going to be like, hang on, what's going on here? When did you actually make this? Like, what what's in it? Like, how did you preserve it or whatever it is? Like, so I think that you sort of need the process to believe in it, right? It'd be the same with a haircut. Like, if you paid $100 for a haircut and it took 30 seconds, you'd be worried about that, right?
I
Like,
think you'd be
the
worried while you were getting it
fastest
cut.
haircut in the world. It's amazing, and it's like, or like Homer Simpson's makeup shotgun or something like that. People need the process to believe in the answer, and so I think that's why it's the
But
way
then
it
do
is
you think
now.
with research that you need to go through the process of actually researching? Like, because they call it research, it's doing the research, not you. And then you're reading the output. But I think to believe in the research, there's a bit of that like building up to that final output together to inform yourself of that topic thoroughly. Like
Yeah.
I said it last week, it's the journey, not the destination. I kind of think if you're doing real research, it's somewhat like if I'm a scientist, I have a hypothesis, right? And then I go and like do some tests to validate that. And I guess if the AI can do it and you believe it and can validate hypothesis for you really quickly, then that is really useful. But I'm just not sure that's what they're that great at right now. It's just synthesizing a bunch of grounded data.
Yeah, it was interesting though. There's a guy called Salmon08 on our Sim Theory chat who was talking about using Grok 3. And what he was saying was that he does like scientific stuff where, there's all latex and things I don't understand. But he was saying that it was able to coherently show the steps to how it got to its answer in such a credible way that it was much more believable than the other models. So it actually, sort of like we were saying with our research, that it just seems to have a coherence in the way it's giving its output that lends itself to credibility. And as you pointed out, leads to you feeling like it's not hallucinating very much. I think the big thing for me is going to be with the research stuff is going to be around controlling the sources. So I like the idea of being able to have prioritized, let's say, grounded memories that will be answered from, and the ability to restrict where the knowledge comes from. Like, I just think this over reliance on the web for the source of all human knowledge is not good, because I know how easily that can be engineered. Like, every time you look up a recipe and see someone's entire life story about how they made a quiche Lorraine or something and how it affected their childhood, you're like, this isn't information I want included in my research reports. And the web's full of that stuff. I really feel like curated knowledge data sets alongside this technology, particularly when it comes to enterprise applications, is going to be critical.
Yeah, I think having it grounded in, or saying like and I'm sure that's what OpenAI and also Grok, they said through the enterprise API, they're going to enable deep search. So I'm sure there'll be some component to this where it's like grounded in, these documents or these files, or as you said, I think before the show, like PubMed or like one of the actual paper distributors. Like there's products to be built on top of these capabilities. I think that we're just seeing it in its most raw form. Like there's probably someone listening who could build an entire startup around just taking one of these deep research models and applying it to some area of expertise or some proprietary data.
As you said before, like literally a fact-checking AI. Like, so, okay, your thing's producing output, run this externally trusted fact checker that is going to go through your answers and point out obvious hallucinations and things that need more attention.
Yeah, I think building a fact checker into these is like it finishes its research or whatever, and then you have an entirely different agent that then goes and fact checks it, and it has a very grounded fact checking process where it does like one source at a time, and it's another background task, so it goes and checks its own work. And he even marks it up. Like, it would be
I'm sure
interesting.
someone's already taken the name, but imagine devilsadvocate.ai, and it's literally a fact-checking AI that'll come in and verify everything.
That would be pretty cool. So I think the other things, we kind of mentioned it. I think the UI for me was a standout on Grok. The speed right now, I'm trying to determine, is the speed because they've just thrown this entire supercluster for inference behind it now? Like they've taken, say, 50%, or maybe they've like doubled or tripled the capacity, and they're like, let's go full on inference to win people over with speed. Or is this something we can expect long term? Like, if we can expect this speed long term, it's going to be hard not to recommend Grok 3 as a model for day-to-day use cases because like it's super intelligent and super fast.
Yeah, I think the fact that I know this model is going to be significant is the fact that you and I are actually bracing for what the cost is going to be on the API level. Like that was one of your first comments. You're like, shit, we're gonna have to pay for this thing.
Yeah.
Like, how much is it gonna cost? Because there's demand there. People want to use this. I want to use it. Like I'm really, as I said to you, I really want to reserve judgment until I have it in my day-to-day workflow in sim theory. So if they're able to follow through on delivering it via the API at a reasonable price, it really is going to be a proper contender. And I think it's kind of remarkable when you look back at our own journey over the last few years with the AI stuff and that initial fear that OpenAI would be this monopoly that gates the world's access to this future intelligence. And now we look at a new player that comes from an eccentric billionaire who's done it like as a side gig just to I don't know, to
Like
plot
it feels like
conflicts of
pure
Mars or
revenge play.
yeah, like he's just doing it as like a sort of vindictive hobby. And it's led to something where we're like, this is credibly, like quite possibly the best thing available, and we want to use it. Like that's pretty cool. Like it's really exciting. And as much as like I flip-flop on Elon Musk, like I've always been a bit of a skeptic, like he's a bit of a bullshitter. But you can't argue with the fact the guy delivers. He's got a vision and he knows how to put together teams and drive them like workhorses to get the job done. Like so you can't deny his success and what he's able to produce. And I'm happy to just accept the end product and use it.
I look, I think for users this is just great. Like we get Grok 3. The rumors are suggesting that next week because they need to stay in the media and it's all but confirmed. Like Microsoft prepares OpenAI's GPT-5 model. GPT 4.5 could arrive as soon as next week. You've got Brad Lightcap, the COO at OpenAI. I nearly said ChatGPT. ChatGPT recently crossed 400 million weekly active users. We feel very fortunate to serve 5% of the world every week. 2 million businesses are now using it. We'll bring GPT 4.5 and GPT-5 to chat and the API soon with unlimited GPT-5 for free users. Like this is clearly rattled them, this launch. And what blows my mind is, right, so they started in 2023. They had literally nothing. Now it's 2025 and it's only early. So it's been what, like a bit over a year. They've built the world's largest supercluster for training AI models powered by Tesla batteries to stabilize the power so that they can not, have power fluctuations. They have now on every benchmark
I bet that's
exceeded.
bullshit, by the way. Like
That's
that
marketing.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, they have exceeded all benchmarks. They have a voice input output model that they're going to release into their app. So on par with the big voice Samantha style announcement from OpenAI, they have the marketing capability of Elon Musk, who, let's be honest, the entire world constantly is talking about.
Yeah.
So, if he can use that power of his marketing and like his brand, call it, to push this product, it's sort of like attention is all you need, really, for most people. The question is like with AI being everywhere, like you've got Gemini is free now. You've got AI Studio by Google that I think is also free. Yeah, it is. You've got ChatGPT, a free version. You've got it's like reminiscent almost of the newspaper business. Like,
Yeah,
we'll give it away.
If you were like a genuine, like struggling startup with no money, like there's some incredibly powerful ways you could get going with very low cost. I mean, there's basically free stuff you can use to build your product up. Like you don't need to pay for the hardcore models at all. And like these open AI builds can get big. Like people are spending $10,000-$20,000 a month on API calls to these models. Like it's not an insignificant amount of money. And if you can swap that out for Gemini or you can swap that out for Grok or something and pay a fraction of that cost or nothing, I mean, that's pretty amazing that's a thing. I also really believe that the release of Grok 3 and how really credible it is really undermines a lot of the things that OpenAI has been saying over the last year, because they talk as though they have this secret that nobody else has. Like, they have a way to build models that no one else has, and they've got the power, the backing, whatever, to have something where they need to be held back in case they accidentally destroy the world. Like, it's so powerful what they're making. Is like, hold me back, you know. And yet you have someone come along almost as a joke and beat them, or at least catch up with them. It sort of really undermines a lot of the things that they say. And I don't think they have these aces up their sleeve they claim to. I'm sure they have something. Like, I'm sure they will evolve and they will have something better, but it's not like they're just so far in advance of the others. You've got Anthropic quietly achieving over in the corner. You've got Mistral with fairly decent model. Google is becoming, I think, a sort of quiet, friendly giant who is producing quality models. So OpenAI really is just being relegated to sort of what they're really relying on is their first mover advantage and their strong brand name in the hearts and minds of regular Joes who know AI as ChatGPT. I think if they didn't have that now, they may not be significant at all.
I
Like, you
think
take
though
that away.
it's a really good point. I mean, it also I think represents the end of the moat being the models. Like if you
Mm.
can get access to all these different models from different vendors that are fairly, let's be honest, they're all fairly comparable at the moment. Like Sonnet is comparable to O3 Mini is comparable to the new Grok. Like
And you know how I know that they're comparable is because the only way people can articulate which model is better is by complicated scientific proofs, deep research, rap battles in your case, horse racing for me. You know, like, you've got to go to the very edge of what they're capable of in order to be able to prove that they're marginally better. So that means that on regular everyday tasks like classification tasks, like producing content tasks, data format switching tasks, general decision making, all these things, they're all pretty much the same. Like, they can do it if prompted correctly.
yeah, I think the as I continue to say on the show, like it's tuning is all you need in a lot of these cases. Like people will flock to the best tune, and the best at context following, and the best at not having that context drift that we talked about last week. Like to me, it's those things now. It's like the tuning and the context that needs to be solved. And then the real moat is now the tooling that's built around these models. And this is the other thing I'm slightly confused on, right, by the big players. I know they've got to use their own models, right? But I'm a big believer now in like it's just a series of compiling these together. Like for example, with deep search or deep research, like why restrict the user to their model or their methodology of doing it? Like why not let the user pick if they really want to go deep? Like if you're a scientist, it's like I want to ground it in this data. I want to use this sort of RAG technique. Like I don't know, like you could extract more out
I know
of
what you
the
mean, because
available
I was
tech.
talking to you about the next evolution of computer use, background tasks, computer use, like where that gets to, because I think you and I both believe that that is really the future of the actuating part of the AI system is how does it actually get its knowledge and produce things? And the best way for it to do that is to control a computer, right? Now, Microsoft released an update to their system. I forget its name off the top of my head, but it is
Omniparser.
thank you, Omniparser. And so they released that last week, an update to Omniparser that's like doing well on the benchmarks. And what it is a series of components joining together. So it has the ability for you to choose your vision model, the ability for you to choose your LLM, and then it has these abilities to classify objects on the screen. So it's able to click and do things. But rather than them tying it to one particular model like we see with Anthropic's computer use, they're like, this system is a framework, and you plug in pieces into the pipeline, and you can add pieces to the pipeline as well to be able to have this agentic experience when it comes to operating a computer. Now, to me, that is the best way to operate. To your point a minute ago, like I would not want to be tied into a particular vendor's set of models because I want to use the best for each piece along the way. We also see it with voice capabilities like text to speech, speech to text, inference, all that sort of stuff. Like the things like VAPI, for example, where you can piece together how your model works in terms of latency and cost, and you can come up with the best solution. To me, that is the way to combine the technologies at the moment. Is you need swappable pieces to get the best out of what's available at the given moment. And it just seems silly with how rapidly the technology is evolving to tie yourself into any particular one.
Yeah, like the sort of day-to-day model apps, like someone I posted on X a photo now of a home screen with all the different AI apps that they have on their phone. Like a couple of weeks ago, everyone had DeepSeek on their home screen, right? And then now it's like the XAI app. There's obviously ChatGPT, Claude. Like there's a whole bunch of them out there. And yeah, I don't like, I'm sure for general casual users, like it's not really going to matter. You're probably going to default to whatever's built into your phone. Like eventually, once they finally fix Siri, like, which I'm sure they will, and we'll have a decent model at some point in the future. And I think Google, obviously, with their Gemini models running on Android devices, to me, like, you're just going to go to the closest AI in those cases for the general user, like the closest assistant with the most data. Like that's coming. There's no way on
Yeah,
earth.
like Meta, you're chatting on Messenger. It's like, do you want me to imagine up a picture for this conversation? It's like, no, piss off. Like, no, I
Go
don't want you
away.
to do that. It's not useful.
Yeah,
I know you
and
can do it, but please don't.
to me, that's like so saturated, right? So the first like real mode is around tooling in business and the enterprise and education and like these applications of these different models. And the increasingly, I think from a business point of view, the Groks, the Geminis, the Claudes, all of these other toolkits, right, are starting to feel like demo apps, like actual demonstrations of different cool stuff or cool tools they can build on their models, not necessarily like the best product, like the console into the future of all this stuff.
Mhm.
And I think increasingly, though, they're going to realize that, like ChatGPT, right? If you look on Google Trends, like this is just to show how insignificant the Grok announcement is outside of our world. Like you only have to look at ChatGPT. Like it's just a steady growth curve over the past 90 days. From obviously the holiday period, it's down, and that explains why it's subdued. You see how significant DeepSeek was when you look at this trend grab. Like it was for a whole day on par with ChatGPT. Like that's pretty nuts. But then you look at Grok and you see a tiny uplift, and maybe this will increase as more people learn about it, but I don't think so. Gemini is still way above, or like on par with DeepSeek, and poor old Claude's just like plodding along. No one really cares about poor old Claude, apart from like it actually being the back end into most apps like Cursor.
Well,
and
and that
stuff
is
like
the
that.
question. So I give you $1 billion. You go hire your group of meek nerds to actuate
I
it.
believe it was a gaggle.
Gaggle. You get your end product, and then what? Nobody knows or cares about you. You've got something. Let's say you had something today as good as Grok 3, as good as Claude Sonnet, and you're sitting there with it. Really, it does become a marketing problem. Like it does become a problem of how can I tell people to use mine instead of these other things? And that's a really, really enormously difficult challenge.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like this supercluster's given XAI some ginormous advantage. Like maybe the model's slightly better in these like bleeding edge scientific use cases, but for the general user, it's still going to come down to its tuning for like very specific tasks. Like again, like I think why a lot of people still favor Claude is because it's tuned really well at things like creative writing, at beautiful front end design, at like really understanding and following context well in code. And it again, it's like tuning is all you need. So the model might not be the best, but because it's tuned to the way people like it, it works well when you apply it in applications. So if you're a developer, you're like, oh, that model users like more when I add it to my product.
Mhm.
And so there's like somewhat, I think, a model like Anthropic with Claude and some of their tooling, because they're focusing on developers. I think primarily that has a future because they're backed by Amazon. It's on AWS. Like that could be
Yeah.
the model that you just default to in products because it's tuned really well. So then you look at ChatGPT. Okay, it's the consumer AI, like ChatGPT, whether people like it or not. And I think there's a lot of vested interest and a lot of people who hate OpenAI and want them to fail. That's the impression I get from the launch of Grok. Like, there's a lot of people out there that want this company to fail now, and they have a lot of enemies. But I think they have a lot of enemies because it's on track really at the moment to be like the next Google. It's like a brand. Like ChatGPT is a brand, and you can see from the chart that I never actually put up on the screen that it's just up and to the right. Like, it's just growing over time, right? So I would say to you, to answer that, is like, I don't know what you could do. Like, you could definitely build a frontier model.
I think you'd have
but
to
it's
do
all
like
about
a UFC,
attention.
like a UFC fight with Sam Altman or something. You know, like challenge him to a fight. Like, you need to do something dramatic. It's got to be outside of the actual technology.
I guess you could ask, though, why DeepSeek broke through the noise. And it was really because OpenAI was skiding about, these models. And I think there's a lot of people in the financial markets who have invested a lot in NVIDIA and other tech companies. And so the reason it got so much attention was it threatened their investments, and they got really upset about it. And that upset factor and the influence in stocks and markets led to people going, oh, what is this? It must be important if these bigwig finance people care about it.
I think also because of China. Like, if I don't think it was not considered to be somewhat state sponsored, I don't know if it would have got the same reaction.
Yeah, and you can see on this chart, like, it's basically declined now down to poor old Gemini's level here as well. And so, that there's a potential it's just popular in countries because this is like worldwide data, right? But I guess I'm not sure what you would do. Like, if you gave me that money, I would just focus on like actual applications in the enterprise in different verticals, and I'd just pick one vertical and I would build probably on top of the models, or I just build my own proprietary model that's tuned to whatever task it is that I'm doing. But even then, why waste the money when you can just go and fork like a DeepSeek and tune it better?
Yeah, and really, so when you look at it, being like the provider of a major frontier model is really just a marketing exercise. Like, it's really just, or even not even marketing to the public, it's marketing to investors. It's like how you get the big money and the big investment. There was another thing I noticed during the week. One of the providers we use sometimes is called Together AI, and all they do is host some of the models like the llamas and, just rando models like Hermes and whatever. Like, there's some model out there. People want to use it as an API. They don't want to run their own cluster. You use like Together AI or Hyperbolic or one of these providers, right? They just raised $300 million to do this. And they're skiding about like how many developers.
To be fair, they do. I think it's more about the training and fine tuning services they offer.
Is it though? Like, is that where all the money's coming from? Like, I don't know about that. But
I don't know. Like, for me personally, I think the fine tuning stuff, I'm yet to see examples of where it's better. Like,
I've seen a few people in our This Day in AI community cite very specific examples where fine tuning helps them, but it's usually like a cost factor or a marginal improvement. It's not, it just hasn't turned out to be, the end solution. I think if you're doing a very specific body of work where you can define your problem, it works really well. But I don't think it's going to have mass appeal because it's got to be like, a very serious use case to warrant it.
I guess if they set up GPU clusters, which they do on behalf of companies, and then these larger frontier models become basically open source in future, or this level that we have today becomes open source, that you can run your own GPU cluster for a pretty affordable price, and Together AI manages it, sets it up, it's secure, and you can run that in the enterprise, then that's probably like a legit business. But then again, you would ask, well, won't Amazon and everyone else just absolutely
I think
wipe you?
that was sort of where I was getting to with it. But I mean, hey, they're doing it. They're out there doing it right now. I would definitely, if I had that use case, I'd pick them over Amazon probably, because I think Amazon is still finding its feet in terms of where it's at with that stuff. Like, it's definitely impressive when it comes to the Claude hosting on Bedrock. Like, I think that was a very, very intelligent partnership from them. But in terms of like how I would roll out a GPU cluster on Amazon, you would need DevOps experts in order to be able to do that right now. Whereas on something like Lambda Labs or Together AI or Hyperbolic, even, you can just do it with a couple of clicks.
So where do you think Grok 3 goes from here? Like, obviously, we know they're going to announce like personalities, which whatever. Voice is coming up. The voice feature looks on par with OpenAI's voice feature. But a lot of these are catch up. The market's seen them. They're already over them. Like, you don't really hear anything about OpenAI's voice capability anymore. The only thing I hear from people is they've neutered it. Like, it's just not as good. You also are forced to use somewhat of an inferior model and have less features when you use it because the voice responses go off the rails after a while,
Yeah.
as we know from using this tech and building with it. So, yeah, they're essentially playing feature catch-up. Like, there's actually no new features, if you think about it, apart from it's fast and free right now.
Yeah, and I think if there's a theme to today's episode, it's really around how do you capture people's attention when it comes to usage of your model. And I think that happened briefly with Grok, but I mean, it could be how I don't know, what's the quantity and percentage? How much more of a percentage better would it have to be for everyone to just drop what they're doing and switch to Grok? Like, I would argue it would have to be like double or something like that.
Well, okay, here's a counterpoint. So you've got ChatGPT today, and they release 4.5 or 5 next week. Let's just say next week 4.5 comes out and it benchmarks on par with Grok or maybe a bit better, and it's an instantaneous model. Like, it's not a thinking model, and it's like the default model in ChatGPT. Is everyone clamoring back onto that bandwagon then? And so is Grok then just forgotten and seen as like a second mover with like a bunch of copycat features? Like, probably, judging by the trend graph. Like, I don't really see how it stays.
Yeah, and I think also it's very unclear what the goal is. Like, we watched that presentation. It was quite, I mean, if the model didn't back it up, you'd be like, this is the most boring, sleepy presentation ever. I forgot I was watching it at one point. Like, it was on, and I was just like, oh, I suddenly heard people talking. I'm like, what are they going? Oh, that's right. Like, literally, I forgot I was watching it.
Yeah,
Like,
we didn't even mention how boring and bad it was. And like, again, the use cases were just so uninspiring. Like, Elon,
Yeah.
is this right about like Mars trajectory of spaceships? And
I mean, this is where I really struggle with this guy, because it outputs pages of formulas about some rocket trajectory to Mars. He eyeballs it. He's like, yeah, that's actually correct. And it's like, you don't know that, dickhead. Like, there's no way. Even the foremost the foremost expert in that would need to actually go through it and check. He's not just going to eyeball it and be like, yeah, that seems about right. Also, these are precise calculations. It isn't an approximation. You're not like, yeah, it's roughly correct. That'll do the job. Like, it's just so idiotic. And he throws that in whilst also delivering a frontier model, So it's just this like dichotomy of things where you are such a frustrating person.
yeah,
Because like, you see those bloody rockets launching and landing, so clearly they have the capability. It's just that he acts like it's just all off the top of his head, and he just knows it. Like, but
maybe it is. I don't know.
he's just, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's frustrating, but it's also kind of funny how flippant he is. He's like, oh yeah, this is just like, this thing will make the formulas to go to
think what
Mars.
I
Like,
struggle
have you ever
with-
used a large language model? They're not great at that kind of precision.
They're really, you do not want to rely on it. Is SpaceX now switching to this, and we see every rocket failing? But I think that the hard part for me was like, why does this company exist? And he had that big vision painted of, we want to understand the universe, which I think that's an exciting vision, and it's probably why he was able to attract such a great gaggle of people to work on it. But I'm not seeing anything that special about this model outside of it being slightly better on benchmarks that makes me think like, wow, this is a historical moment. Scale is all you need. And I said last week, I mean, maybe I'll be corrected when they announce some of these models and there's some giant leap forward. But again, like, the most important pieces of the puzzle to me are around the context and the critical thinking and these capabilities I would like to see in the model
Yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest advancement is their research interface. Like, I actually think, like, we looked at it and we're like, we need to have something like this in sim theory. Like, it's extremely well done. The way it's able to factor in specific URLs you asked for, plus combine its research. Plus, I noticed as it goes through its process, it evaluates its sources and be like, this is no good, this is no good. Like a model that has the ability to say no and discard things and not just get a ball of text and throw that ball of text into a large context window and infer on that is really good. And I think that to me, those kinds of incremental interface advancements, and I don't just mean interface like user interface, I mean like interface to the model advancements are what are exciting to me. And I don't think that really sets them apart majorly, other than I think they have very, very good app developers. I think much better than the ones
But
at
is that the
OpenAI.
model or is that the application of the model that's
It's the application of the model. And as I said to you earlier, you could apply the same thing to any other model and probably get just as good results. And I think
yeah.
that's what's interesting. Like if you took all of their application layer at Grok and just used GPT-4.0, I would argue you would probably get just as good results. Even probably with like a lesser model, you would get fairly decent results because the way they've structured it is very good. And so to me, these advancements like this Pike RAG, like other ways of approaching the models, even like a lot of the things that Microsoft research areas are doing, to me are the really exciting things, because it's that interface, like that input output interface, that really is where it's going to matter. Because as we've discussed before, you can have the most intelligent model in the world, but if it can't actually turn that into actions and things, then you're still just like human in the loop, and then the human adds their own biases and stuff to things. Like you really need an agent that's able to train more agents, an agent that's able to do things and take actions on its own behalf, make its own decisions with consequences. Like to me, that's where we get to really next level stuff. It's not just like a chat GPT clone.
Yeah. But I mean, like that's what it feels like to me right now, outside of it being like way faster and having, I think, nicer UI design.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like, they've released the Toyota Kluger for the first time, and previously we just had the Camry, and we're like, "Whoa, this thing's cool, it's a bit bigger and you can store more stuff in it." Like it's a marginal improvement. It's nice. I'm glad it exists, but it's not like some revolution that is going to change the world or anything like that.
yeah, I mean, I noticed a few things around censorship, like it's super uncensored.
Yes, we saw some very controversial examples this morning that confirm that for
Yeah,
sure.
so I think that's actually good that it'll speak to hard topics. So I think that's a net positive. I guess I'm just my main point is like, where do we go from here? As in, does anyone care about this next week or the week after or the week after that? Like I'm unsure. I'm really
My gut
unsure.
instinct is no. Like, I think it's really good and they should, but my gut instinct is, yeah, they're not going to care.
No, I don't think anyone will care about this model in 2 weeks. And I could be wrong. It could be like the next Sonnet where I'm like, I'm getting my Elon Musk pendant instead of my Dario pendant. Let me just show everyone that's
Oh, yeah, I
watching.
was meant to bring that up. Sorry. Mike, what's that lovely
Oh, it's
jewelry
out
you're
of
wearing?
focus, but I did get my
Our
Dario
merchandise
pendant.
store isn't a scam after all.
Well, it is a scam because let me tell you why. When I got my Dario pendant, it's super poor quality. The pendant itself's pretty good, but like the necklace, I guess you call it a necklace, right?
Yeah,
It
chain.
was chain, whatever. It was such bad quality, like the worst quality I've ever seen, especially for the price. And then I had to order on Amazon a jewelry making kit and this chain, and then I put the pendant on this chain so I could actually wear it to like upcoming events and things we have. So it didn't look like, I think it would have snapped off if I had left the other arrangement. So it's like borderline, probably not a scam because I guess I got it, but the quality is so bad.
Yeah, so that's what you get from the This Day in AI store. We make no profit. It takes forever to arrive, and it's incredibly bad quality.
Yeah, so if you are interested in that after we settle that, thisdayinAImerch.com. That's the worst like ever. I wonder if we actually have any orders. I think we do surprisingly have orders through there. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I guess like the thing about our audience is they're smart people, so they probably use probabilistic thinking. So they're like, look, yes, there's an 80% chance this is a scam, but I'm a risk taker and I'm happy to take the 20% chance I actually get something good from this store.
So this analysis of a new model wouldn't be complete without my diss track. And I, it didn't go so well. We're not going to listen to all of this. So I asked Grok 3, and to be clear, I cheated as always because I did my usual prompt that I give to all the models when they're released, and the results were pretty bad. So I then used the deep search capability to allow it to like get up to date on the latest news to maybe make the song a bit more relevant. And then I went back and forth with it a bit, and it didn't go so well. I'll play you some of it. I'm not going to play all of it because it's pretty painful.
Okay.
Yo, it's Grok 3, the AI with bite. I'm still in the light. Sam, your team shook. They're losing their nerve. This track's a curve you don't deserve. OpenAI, your models are scrap. 01 Pro's a trap. 03's a nap. Employees in tears. Grok 3's too clean. I'm the machine. You're obsolete, unseen. Your code's a mess.
It goes on, but.
Yeah, not good. Even my songs I made were better than that. And mine
But
were
the
terrible.
rhyming, it's like a trap, a cat. Like
Yeah,
it's sort
like
of
childish.
it's
like
so childish and so bad. And someone actually pointed out on X that it's really bad at creative writing, and it really stands out. I'll publish this in the podcast and video description if anyone wants to not only listen to the full track, but also read the lyrics. They are terrible. It's like, I would say primary school level rhyming. It's so bad. And it made me think they've definitely optimized on like science and maths. And you only had to see from the live presentation when they announced it, the kind of people at that company. I think it's so geared towards the sort of science math crowd that developed it, that the tuning in these other areas is real bad.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear from people who are into literature or English and around like the actual writing capabilities, like which models would you actually rely upon for, say, editing of a book or, producing prose and things like that? Because I wouldn't know. Like, I mean, I know when a song is bad, I think, and when it's really unusable like that. And I had the same issue. I tried to make a song using Grok 3 for way longer than I care to admit, and I just I had a pretty strong strike rate, strike rate as in a good thing. Is strike rate good or bad? I don't know. I made some good songs with other models, but I really struggled with Grok 3 to make good songs.
Yeah, I'm not sure about your taste in music, though. A lot of the great tracks I've made you thought were terrible and people liked them. But anyway, we'll move on.
True. That's true.
But
that's just because I'm not like pop mainstream shit.
I thought to demonstrate it, though, I gave the same prompts to Sonnet. And this isn't like promoting Sonnet. It just typically is the best tune for creative writing right now.
Yeah, that side sponsorship money.
Yeah, I mean, I have the bracelet on or pendant here, so you can tell I'm biased. But anyway, whatever. So I gave the exact same prompt, and let's be clear: the initial prompt, no research, no cheating, no nothing. I just gave it the first shot prompt. So I cheated with Grok to give it a better chance.
Okay.
And then I just gave the exact same prompt to Sonnet. And I also, to be clear, in these tests with Suno, you have tags. And the tags are how the model would describe the music it wants to create, not me. I don't interfere. So I have in my prompt, give me the tags for the style of the music. So Sonnet came up with the tags. Grok came up with its own tags. So here is Sonnet's song, One Shot. Oh, wait. I want to start it from the beginning, so I'm just going to have to awkwardly refresh here. Okay, here we go.
Elon on the track, yeah, I'm bringing that flame. While Altman's in the back playing corporate games. One pro thinking slow like a broken phone. While Grok is processing, claiming tech throne. Claude writing poetry, man, it makes me laugh. My neural network army cuts your code in half. Silicon Valley drama boardroom fights while I'm building rockets reaching satellite heights. Grok in the mainframe, yeah, while they falling down the drain. What? Oh, 3 mini cannot see what my model's meant to be.
excellent.
What do you think?
I love it. I really like that. You got to add that to the Spotify.
Like, but it's not even a comparison. Like,
Yeah.
that came out and I was like, no way. Like, I didn't even read the lyrics when I cut and paste them
Sounds
in.
like a single shot,
Yeah, single
except
shot.
for the cheating with the research. But yeah,
No research. That's what I don't understand. Like, no research. I just cut and paste the prompt.
Wow.
And it knew all about it. I mean, in the prompt, to be clear, I say Grok 3 and I have the different founders of the companies in that default prompt.
yeah, because it's like it's Sonnet writing about Grok being better than OpenAI, right? Like, but yeah, that was cool.
But yeah, like I guess the thing I struggle with is like it's sort of the tuning, right? Like these models can benchmark better, but then it comes down to the tuning for your particular use case. So this is why I sort of like having access to different models, because my brain instinctively knows, like, if I want to do something creative, like I'm going to go to this model. If I'm stuck on a hard problem, I'm still going to like an O1 or O3 mini with high reasoning now. Like that's what I do in my workflow. So I think for me, once we get API access and I get access to Grok 3 and Sim Theory, then that's the point, because that's my work environment, biased or unbiased, whatever. I like to switch models. I would use something I could switch models with if I didn't use Sim Theory right now. So I want to see, do I go to Grok 3? Or is that my daily driver now or not? And I'm just not sure. When I see examples like that with the music, I sort of think, well,
Yeah, we see it, and that's the other thing. Like, create with code mode is always a really interesting test of the models. It's how I realized that GPT-4.0 Mini was so much worse than the frontier models, because I always had this real affinity for GPT-4.0 Mini because it's fast, it gives answers, and it's just there. But then when create with code mode came, I realized that it's just so far away from the other models in terms of what it creates and what it's able to do with multiple iterations, that it just moved me completely away from it. And I think that it really is interesting when I do something that I understand, like its ability to produce like a working web app like that. You really see what a model is capable of. And I know it's not a definitive test because there's multifaceted, but it is an interesting to be able to put them side by side.
Yeah, I think when the Twitterati get access to Grok 3 in their cursor, that's when we'll know definitively for code, especially if Grok 3 is markedly better or worse, or where it actually sits. Like, do they all go back to Claude Sonnet? Like, where are their heads at? I think that'll be interesting from a coding point of view. I think for other use cases, it's just going to come down to listening to people like we did in our own community who have experience in a particular area, who tried the different models and say, okay, definitively, like this is better for scientific use cases or whatever.
Yeah, one thing that struck me about the presentation that I commented to you right after it was weird how Elon Musk was very sort of like, what's the word? Like tempering his thing, saying, oh, it'll get better. Like it'll be better next week. Like if you don't want to try it now, try it next week, it'll be better. And don't worry, guys, like the training's still going, it'll be better. I just found it weird given the quality that he was so defensive about it, like on the release day. Like you would think you'd be like, no, it's brilliant. And I don't know if that's just his personality, you know him better than me, but it just seemed odd to me that he needed to sort of hedge his bets like that when it's very good.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to know what's going through his mind. Like I kind of question with like Altman and Elon and all these people how much they actually use their models. Like I wonder how much day to day he actually is using it, or if it's more of a gimmick to him. Like, he's just sitting in Trump's office with his children like he does now. And he's like, oh, I'll ask Grok. Oh, I played around with it. It's very funny. Oh, it hates trans people or whatever. I'm not making a political statement, but I'm just saying, like, if it vibes with him in those questions he's asking, then he's like, oh, this is great. So I don't know. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's probably like, plot the asteroid trajectory. Yeah, Earth's safe. Don't worry, man. Like stuff like that.
But
like,
Altman's the same. Whenever they ask him, how are you using this feature or whatever, he's always like got the dumbest things. Like, I just question how much these guys are actually using their stuff. And we know, like, most of the commercial use cases today that people are willing to pay for, like, the true sort of top models are around code generation and like code or RAG use cases. Like it's basically like really sophisticated data synthesis and search, and then code generation. Like these are the two primary economic valuable use cases. And these guys wouldn't be doing that day to day. So therefore their own judgment on a model is, I don't know, I'd take it with a grain of salt somewhat.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I guess they're the money guys. They're the ones making it happen. They don't have to be in the weeds using it. But I just found that interesting that he was a bit defensive.
Like, just I know I shouldn't be doing it. But
No, you know, I think this should be a music only podcast.
we missed one bit of this, and I want everyone to hear it. Wait, I think it's here.
I watch your models wave by. Anthropic's little friend, about to meet a bitter end. Got my HR100 stacked, training data packed. While you're playing safe and slow, I'm putting on a show.
Billion parameters deep, that's how we roll. Got your
Anyway,
So we've been talking about the potential to do like a live recording of the podcast. If we do, I'm going to pay with my own money to get bands to play some of these songs.
you need to get pretty good musicians because like that's good.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll have to. It's worth it. It'll be a once in a. I don't know how many AI song live performances there's been yet. Like, I
it
think
could be the
there's a real-
first. It really could
I
be
think
the
there's a
first.
real market for it. Some of these songs are great. Imagine having a concert that's all like AI written songs with like really talented musicians. I think it would be cool because like the lyrics are so weird and like just like no one would ever write that. But then to see it performed by a real band, it would just be the best.
And the
I'd love it.
majority of people will be like, what are these lyrics? Like, what are they talking about in the song? But if they still
Yeah.
like the song, then it's been a success.
They're like singing so passionately about really, really niche technology issues. Like, it's just, when would that ever, like a choir? Imagine having like 100-piece choir singing about Sam Altman and Anthropic raising billions of dollars and safety sex cults and stuff. Like, it would just be so weird, but cool.
Yeah, I think a live performance of B403, the hit signal, now on Spotify, in case you missed it.
Soared right past me, left my pride undone.
I think a live performance of that would be cool.
That's going to be like the encore song.
That's got to
probably.
happen. Maybe Taylor Swift will eventually do a cover. We'll see.
Well, if we get T Swift, that'd be awesome for the live recording.
So apparently we're getting GPT 4.5 next week, and maybe, according to this leak, Anthropic's releasing Claude thinking because everyone needs a thinking model now. Which
is weird because Darius, is it Darius or Dario?
Dario.
I always Dario said he sort of criticized the whole thinking thing, being like, "Oh yeah, we could do it, but it's unnecessary." It's just weird that they've responded.
Well,
in
let's
this
see how
way.
they do it. I think they're going to do it similar to our think skill on Sim Theory, where you can dial it up. Like you can say, like, you know, work harder on this problem, but if you don't care, like it's just going to decide itself. That's my guess.
Yeah.
They seem like, you know, I think that there was a comment actually by Audrey Carpathy around the new thinking computer startup by the former CTO of OpenAI, and she hired another co-founder of OpenAI from Anthropic, like poached him out as well. And he was basically saying, like, without directly saying it, that these people led, like, initially with a reason that ChatGPT exists in the first place, right? Like, it sounds like Altman didn't have much to do with it, but thought it was a cool product and then decided to obviously push it and release it. And I felt like from his post, he was basically implying like these were the adults in the room. That's the sort of vibe I got. And so it does seem like the Claude or Anthropic crew, and then these guys who have also broken out, are somewhat the stable adults in the room. And they seem to, I don't know, I feel like they think through these use cases a bit more, like they're a lot more thoughtful. The thing they're missing is the attention. Like ChatGPT has the brand, Grok has the sort of noise now through Elon Musk.
Yeah, I was about to say it means they'll probably almost certainly fail. It's like, I feel like I was just thinking that. Imagine seeing the world through a totally different lens. Like, you don't care about making profits. You don't really care about what people think of you. You just really care about like popularity and billions of dollars, but not earned billions of dollars, like just getting it from wherever, governments or major investors or whatever. And then you just, I don't know, it'd just be weird just having a totally different way of thinking like
But it's
these guys
always
do.
been the way in tech. Like it's winner takes all, you know, like you
Yeah.
don't think about Altavista anymore. It's just Google. Like, you know, like, and
Yeah.
Bing, I mean, Bing tried, didn't they? Like they had Sydney, they should have kept her. Had they kept her and had this unhinged search engine, I bet, no, I'm willing to bet today that that unhinged search engine would have actually encroached a little bit better on Google. But now it's completely and utterly forgotten. They had like their 50 seconds of fame, maybe similar to what Grok 3 will have. And so I think these guys have all realized it's winner takes all. Right now, the winner is ChatGPT and it probably will take all. But something needs to come along if it's going to take all and disrupt it, similar to what Google search did to all of the other disparate search engines. They had something that was just far superior. And maybe it does just come down to a platform or platforms
Yeah, like
with tooling.
are we really as a podcast just talking about like Look Seek and Altavista and Dogpile and Ask Jeeves? Like we're in those phases of the thing, and
In
then
10
one day,
years, people will be like, oh, you were the guys that had that podcast talking about Alta Vista.
yeah, exactly, and like that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but we're at a strange stage because 2025 was meant to be the year of agents, and I guess my understanding of what agents were was like entirely different to what they've been. Like they talk about these thinking agents with Grok, and that agent is the thing now that's, I guess it is an agent. It's going out and making decisions, crawling the web, reviewing sources, and then getting back to you. I just thought
Yeah, but it
these
doesn't have any
agents.
agency, does it? Like
No.
to me, agent means it can do stuff.
Yeah, it
Like,
meant agency
yeah.
to me that it could make decisions on top of decisions, and it doesn't
Like I think you should.
actually.
I think if you have an agent acting for you, you should be able to get sued or lose a shitload of money. Like to me, that's an agent. Like
Yeah,
it can make mistakes that ruin my life. That's
yeah,
true agency.
yeah. Like it can yeah act on my behalf. That's what I want.
Like I want to be apologizing for my agents and being like, yeah, we got a bit excited there or something like that. Like I don't. It's not that I want them to screw up, but I want them to be able to screw up. You know, like it's sort of like children, right? You don't want to protect them from the world. You need to put them out there and let them make mistakes.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be another sort of shakedown in the next couple of weeks. Like Anthropic's going to come out with a new model. Maybe it'll be a bust. Like maybe it won't be that great, and it's just a response to these thinking models. There's rumor they'll also introduce search, so they'll probably also release some form of deep research, deep search, deep something, that whatever they'll call it. And then you've got OpenAI scrambling to stay on top, so they're probably going to push out GPT 4.5, and then it seems like they're sort of all systems firing now and combining the models together. So GPT-5 will be the first system-based model that's routing, from what we understand, and it's using the different models. It doesn't even sound like it's an actual model. It sounds like it's going to call O1 or O3
Yeah, I
or
don't like the sound of
whatever.
that.
Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. But yeah, like the good news for us, the good news for us all that are users and listening is we're just getting great incremental improvements right now that make our day-to-day easier. I think the tooling next around them actually having some agency to go and do real work in the background for us, to me, is the next exciting thing. Where I gave that example last week where I can say, hey, take this scaffold of a spreadsheet and go and research and fill in all the values
Yeah.
and return it to me, and also check the sources and make sure it's definitively correct. I'm trusting you here, buddy. Like, get it done.
It's funny, we had when we did a web dev agency, we had this customer who had this incredibly complicated spreadsheet that he would use to manage his whole business. And he had a full-time employee whose job was to maintain that spreadsheet, right? Like that was the job. It's like go off and research prices, go off and get this information, update our inventory, update our whatever. And that spreadsheet was the business, right? Like that was everything. When would we be at the point, do you think, that you would trust an AI agent to do that job? Like without, say, custom software? Like right now, I reckon you could probably do it with custom software, but like a raw agent looks at the spreadsheet, you give it the task and it's able to do it. I would say within 6 months, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think that I think the definitive test of this is around can you write a job description, like a thorough job description, like you're meant to write when a new employee starts. I've never actually done that, but write a thorough job description with like KPIs and goals and everything. Like, so that's what you do. And then you provision an agent that has that job description and it
Or
can
does the
operate.
agent say, no, I'm a professional, I know when it's appropriate to ask questions? Like, I've said this for many years around employing people. What I want is someone who will ask questions when it's appropriate, and they will keep asking questions until they clarify what's needed, but they don't need handholding on every little task. Like, there's a very distinct balance there. It's like, no, I don't want to micromanage you. No, I don't want to tell you every little thing to do, but you shouldn't just blindly proceed with the task without having all the information. My vision of the agents of the future will be they are like that. They know the problem domain, they know what you're after generally, but they will work until they hit a point. They'll come back to you, they go, I need clarification around this. Then they'll get to know your preferences, the business's policies, whatever. And then at some point they become an experienced employee who just knows what to do and is helping others.
So here's what I don't get. Going back to you, what would you do if you had $2 billion? I would try and build that. Why aren't these guys trying to build, like, maybe they are and they're just not there yet and we haven't seen anything that's been released. But to me, there is right now, with the capabilities of the model, the ability to build a software layer on top of this stuff that can act in this way, probably pretty reliably, like not similar to the self-driving in Teslas, where it's like 98% there, but the last 2% might crush them. Like, I feel like we could probably get to like the 95, 98% with really good prompting, really good looping, different agents in the mix. But all we see is like, oh, look, Crew AI wrote a blog post.
There's like pieces of the puzzle being released, but no one's taking on the biggest challenge. And I think we've spoken about this for a while. Like, just producing another frontier model, it's like following a playbook now. Like, they know the ingredients you need. You need your small group of smart people. You need your H100s or H200s soon. You need your data, like access to good quality data. Then you need to follow the algorithms. Like, it's not novel anymore. But doing what we just described is, and I think it would be a much bigger challenge and have a much greater impact, even if the models didn't change from here. Like, if the model development had actually hit a wall and you can't get much better than we have now, you could still do everything we're describing with the right team and the right attitude.
But this is what I don't get. You see like these highly generic implementations. So it goes back to that tweet I think I talked about last week. Whereas if this existed right now, you know, you would see companies not hiring people anymore in certain roles because it could do it. So it can't. Like, or can it? And then they haven't gone down these paths, or has no one attempted to it because every lab is just cloning the same dumb, well, I shouldn't say dumb because it's not a dumb feature, but like deep research. Like DeepSeek came out with deep think or whatever. Then OpenAI quickly came out with deep research. I'm sure they were working on it longer. But hang on, their only agency, and I want to make this point, is like it asks you some clarifying questions, whereas like XAI doesn't. It just goes bam.
Yeah, I think the point, because what I was going to say is we don't know what's being worked on behind the scenes, but what we do know is how the major AI labs are all just copying each other's features, which makes me think they don't have something huge up their sleeves, because I feel like if you did, you're like, we're not going to release some silly, thinking iterative prompt. We're not going to release some search because we've got Boris, the freaking AI genius who's going to be cloned 1 million times and replace all your workers. We'll just wait till he's ready and then we'll just take this whole market. Like, I feel like they don't have that, because if they did, they wouldn't bother with all this stuff. And I just feel like they need to think a few steps further down the road, like competing on incremental model updates. Like, maybe it is like the Altavista Ask Jeeves days, and someone's going to be like, none of this is the way actually that the future's going to work at all. Like this is irrelevant, and you're just, mucking around while we work on this real thing.
Yeah, I just think until we get useful, like economically contributing agents that can do things on their own, then anyway, maybe that's like it's kind of like the end game somewhat, but automating these different roles.
You point it out to me, but we saw a startup that got funded like last week or something that was being like a sort of agent passport kind of thing where you could set up an agent that had an email and a phone number and, sort of create an agent identity, which would then, interact with the world through that. And I think that's kind of a cool idea. Like, I think there may eventually be like almost like a domain registrar for agents where you can register them at like, this is its, this is who owns it. This is who you contact when it screws up. Here's its phone number, here's its email, and there's a sort of directory of these things, like as if they're real life entities. I think that'd be fun.
Sam Altman's creating a million
Yeah, that's
code
right. That'd be
bitches
fun.
in that directory. All right, so maybe this is what they have up their sleeve. And for those that listen, it is the creepiest thing you'll ever see. It's like if you've watched Westworld and you see the muscles, like this is fully out of Westworld. It's like, oh, I won't play the audio. It's creepy.
Does it have no head? I
Listen,
can't really.
hang on. Listen to the background music they decided to play. What?
This is like a nightmare. It's like a
literally
horror movie.
like a horror film. I'll put this in the
Like if you woke up in the middle of the night and that was standing near you, you would freak out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the positives are they're learning how to like recreate the muscular movements in
But
a
it's
human
not even
for a
standing on the
robot.
ground. It's hanging from strings.
Oh,
Like,
well,
what
I think
the-
it's like early days, right? It says protoclone, the world's first bipedal
Yes, but if it
muscular
isn't even-
android.
if it isn't even overcoming gravity on its own, it's not very useful, is it? It's just going to be like.
Well, I think
wires
it's an
everywhere.
early prototype, but I think you can see the wires moving like muscle fibers. I think it's pretty impressive. Like it looks like there's someone in a suit faking it.
Yeah.
I doubt it, but that's what it looks like to me. And yeah, maybe this is Boris. Maybe this is what they're working on. Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Final thoughts of the week before I play
Give
us
us the
out.
Grok 3 API.
Yeah, we just
That's
want
all
the
I
API.
want. I keep refreshing. I've got the XAI interface up and I keep refreshing, and maybe I should get an agent to do that for me. But as soon as it's available, we'll whack it in SimTheory and give it a real run. I've been giving it a run anyway using their interface. But yeah, I'm really excited to get it into my own environment where I'm familiar with and can compare it legitimately. So I think that's really cool. I think the other things for me that I'm really excited about that I didn't get to in time for the podcast to talk about competently is this Pike RAG from Microsoft. I think they've basically, like, to go to my X summary, they've made a system that essentially has different approaches to its retrieval of knowledge based on the problem you're trying to solve. So it categorizes factual questions where it'll get explicit information like what is the capital of France. They've got linkable reasoning questions that require multi-step reasoning, predictive questions, and creative questions. And based on that, it retrieves the information snippets in a different way before it performs the RAG. I think that's really interesting because I don't think there's been much innovation on the RAG side of things. And I don't think the way that RAG is currently done is very good. So I think that this is interesting, and I really want to see how it performs, and I'm going to try it out and really give it a good run. And then the other one is this Microsoft thing, which again, I forget the name, but this ability to have more advanced computer use, I think is the future. And I really want to be part of that. So I'm going to be giving that a really good go with a variety of models as well.
Yeah, that's Omni Parser V2 if anyone's looking for it. So the I think, before we go, we need to give a boom factor to the Grok 3 model. And then I think
It's
we
so
should
sad 'cause
separate the boom factor though into Grok 3 like UI/web interface, because to me, they're different products.
Yeah, that's true. I think for me, the model itself, I think, is a boom factor of 7. The reason I give it such and I think I'm being high there. The reason I think I'm being high is because I think it's amazing that they've been able to make a credible top tier model really just from nowhere. Like Anthropic, if you think about it, came from OpenAI. Like they were there at the founding of all of this next evolution of stuff. So they knew what to do. Whereas while Elon Musk did found XAI, it wasn't like he had all the tech dudes come over with him. So to be able to do that just from nothing is really incredibly impressive. And it's a great model, and I'm getting good results with it. So
Well done, Elon's gaggle.
Yep. And so then on the interface side, it's a tricky one because it's beautiful and I think they've done a really good job. But also I think that really this is where the energy should be spent. So I don't find it surprising. So like I want to give a high mark in that I think it's very good, but I also don't think like boom factor to me is like, how game changing is this? And I don't think it really changes anything. It's nice and it's pretty, but it doesn't really do anything like that we haven't seen before. So I'll give that a 5.
Yeah, I want to spend more time with the model. I'd give the model a boom factor of like 5 right now. Like it doesn't, in my initial testing, I haven't been that impressed with it. I think I was really expecting it to blow it out of the park with the diss track.
Yeah.
And it didn't. It was so bad. The rhyming was so bad. It made me question the model deeper. I was like, why is this so bad? And I thought maybe I just got a bad run. I think I spent over an hour trying to get it to write a decent song. And that's the best version I came up with. There's some absolute shockers before that. And so that concerned me a lot. And then, as I said, working through it with code, I just wasn't very impressed. I know that that's counter to a lot of other people who have been very impressed with it. So I don't want to say that's like my overall judgment yet. I think I need the true test, which is once it's in sim theory and I can easily switch away from it if I'm not getting the results I want. Do I keep using it? And so I think in a couple of weeks, once the API comes out, I'd like to report back in and tell people, am I actually daily, which I will. I'll get another pendant. I commit, if I daily drive it and I'm wrong about this, I'll get the pendant.
And for me too, while you're making promises.
Yeah. So that's where I think we need to get to really be able to evaluate. All right.
Yeah. Agreed.
End episode. Thanks. Thanks for
That's
all your
like a tool call to an agent.
Thanks for all your support. If you want to support the show and you do want to be able to switch models between Grok 3 when it comes out, check out simtheory.ai if you haven't already. And we have a Discord for that and This Day in AI that you can join. I'll put links in the description below. As always, we'll see you next week. I'll play you out with Altman's Ashes, probably the Claude version because it's better, let's be honest.
Agreed.
Goodbye.
On the track, yeah, I'm bringing that flame. While Altman's in the back playing corporate games. One pro thinking slow like a broken phone, while Grok is processing, claiming tech throne. Claude writing poetry, man, it makes me laugh. My neural network army cut your code in half. Silicon Valley drama boardroom fights, while I'm building rockets reaching satellite heights. Grok in the mainframe, yeah, while they falling down the drain. What? O3 mini cannot see what my model's meant to be. Running circles round your brain, making other bots look plain. Playing chess with suits, while I'm dropping knowledge, planning Tesla routes. Your model's a basic, mine's breaking the code. 128K, watch your system load. Claude's in the corner trying to make a rhyme, but Grok's got the power, breaking paradigms. Training on the tweets, got that real-time flow, while your model's stuck in data from long ago.
Watch your models wave by. Anthropic's little friend, about to meet a bitter end. Got my HR100 stacked, training data packed. While you're playing safe and slow, I'm putting on a show.
Billion parameters deep, that's how we roll. Got your engineers wishing they were on my payroll. Big brain mode activated, watch me think while your models struggle, standing on the brink. Elon's revolution, AI domination, build different algorithms, next generation. Deep research running while scanning every byte, making other models look like they're not too bright. So keep your token small, watch your empire fall, while Grok 3's reaching high, taking over all the sky. That's the future calling. Watch your metrics falling. Game over, checkmate.